the stranger who knew his name. The shuttle drifted through the pale clouds of Vera Prime, its silver hull glowing against the planet's two suns inside. Commander Ethan Cole checked the data on his wrist screen again. Everything read normal, yet his heart beat faster than it should. He was here to open peaceful trade with the Verans, a proud and quiet species known for their strange sense of time. For Ethan, it was just another mission, another landing on another world. When the ramp lowered, warm air brushed his face. Carrying a smell like rain and metal, a crowd of Verans stood waiting. Tall figures with pale skin that shimmered like glass. At their center stood a woman unlike any other. Her eyes glowed faint silver. Her dark hair moved like it floated underwater. She stepped forward before any greeting was given. "You're late," she whispered. Her voice soft yet certain. Ethan froze, his hand tightening on his belt. "I'm sorry," he said carefully. "Have we met before?" The woman's expression broke for a moment, sorrow flashing through her alien calm. The Veran guards around her lowered their heads, whispering words Ethan didn't understand. To them, the woman seemed sacred. To him, she looked human enough to be haunting. "You promised you'd come back before the stars died," she said quietly. As if speaking to an old memory, Ethan frowned. "I think there's a mistake. This is my first time on Vera Prime." Her silver eyes studied him with disbelief and longing. She turned away slightly as though holding back tears. The silence between them thickened until the air itself felt heavy. Captain Ramos, Ethan's second in command, stepped beside him whispering, "Commander, should we continue the protocol?" Ethan nodded, but his voice trembled a little. "Yes. Proceed." As his crew began unloading supplies, Ethan kept glancing at the alien woman. The crowd obeyed her every gesture. She was clearly someone of high status. One of the interpreters leaned close and said, "She is called Liara, Keeper of Time. She leads their spiritual order." "Keeper of Time?" Ethan repeated under his breath, uneasy laughter in his voice. "Yes, Commander," the interpreter replied. "They say she remembers things before they happen." Ethan's stomach tightened. Liara approached again, holding a small crystal tablet in her hands. Its surface flickered with light and strange symbols. She offered it to Ethan. "This was yours," she said softly. Ethan looked down. The tablet glowed faint blue as it touched his palm, reacting to his touch. "How?" He started, but Liara interrupted gently. "It recognizes you, just as I did." The device projected an image, a human soldier standing beside her. Same height, same face, same eyes. Ethan's breath caught. "That's impossible," he whispered. The image shimmered and vanished. His crew stared in shock. Whispering among themselves, Ramos muttered, "That can't be you, sir. Maybe it's a trick." Ethan wanted to agree, but the woman's eyes, the way she looked at him, made his heart twist. "I don't know what this is," he said, stepping back. "But I think there's some misunderstanding." Liara shook her head slowly. "The misunderstanding is time itself, Commander Cole. You have lived before, and you will live again, always returning, always late." Her tone carried neither anger nor madness, only deep sadness. Ethan tried to laugh it off. "I'm not much for prophecy, ma'am. I just follow mission orders." The sky darkened slightly as the twin suns moved apart, casting long shadows over the landing site. The Verans began to hum in unison, a sound like wind through crystal towers. Liara gestured for Ethan to follow her toward a temple built into the mountain ridge. Curiosity pushed him forward even as logic screamed to stay. Inside, faint blue light pulsed along the walls, forming shapes like stars. At the center of the chamber stood a large circular device, silent but alive. "This is where you began," Liara whispered. "And where you ended?" Ethan's throat tightened. "I don't understand." "You will," she said simply. "When the memory awakens." A vibration ran through the floor, making dust fall from the ceiling. His crew outside called through comms. "Commander, seismic activity rising." "You should come out." Ethan hesitated, staring at the strange markings. His fingers brushing one symbol by accident. Light burst across the chamber, flooding his mind with flashes, fire, war. A promise whispered under collapsing stars. He saw his own face, younger, bleeding. Holding Liara's hand, then darkness, he stumbled back, gasping for air. What was that?" Liara's calm voice echoed. "A fragment of who you were. The first time you saved us." Ethan shook his head violently. "No, I've never been here, I'm not." But words failed him. because deep inside something felt horribly familiar. Outside thunder cracked, though no clouds filled the sky. Ramos's voice came again, louder now. "Commander, what's going on in there?" Ethan steadied himself and replied, "Just a misunderstanding." But his voice betrayed him, shaking with confusion and awe. He turned back to Liara, who now stood beside the glowing circle, her face bathed in light. "You see," she said gently, "time never forgets its debts." The glow dimmed, leaving faint trails across the walls. Ethan backed away, holding his head. "If this is some kind of trick..." "I'll find out," Liara smiled sadly. "It's not a trick. It's a reunion." As he left the temple, his thoughts spiraled like the storm above. Every sound felt distant, every step heavier. The alien woman's words echoed again. "You're late." He looked up at the night sky, at the countless stars burning cold light over him. For the first time in years, Ethan Cole, the disciplined commander of Earth's fleet, felt small. Something old and unexplainable had reached out from beyond time and touched him. And though he didn't know why, part of him already feared what the next dawn on Vera Prime would bring. Echoes from a forgotten past the next morning. The skies above Vera Prime glowed with a strange golden mist. Ethan stood outside his shuttle, staring at the horizon, unable to shake the visions from last night. He had seen himself in armor older than any human design, fighting under a crimson sky beside that same alien woman. Now, as dawn broke, his mind felt divided between memory and mission. He told himself it was stress, maybe the atmosphere, maybe the light tricks, but deep down he knew it wasn't that simple. Captain Ramos walked up holding a tablet. "Commander, the readings from the temple wall show materials older than this planet itself." Ethan frowned. "Older than the planet?" Ramos nodded uneasily. "Yes, sir, millions of years old." Ethan exhaled slowly, eyes scanning the temple's outline in the distance. "Nothing about this place makes sense." Before he could say more, Liara appeared again, walking barefoot over the sand like gravity had forgotten her. Her gaze locked on Ethan, calm but heavy with meaning. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "Hard to sleep after seeing yourself die in someone else's memory," Ethan replied, half joking, half serious. Liara tilted her head. "Not someone else's." "Yours?" Ethan didn't respond. He turned toward the temple. "You said time never forgets its debts." "Yes," she whispered. "And you are one of its oldest debts." Her voice was neither threat nor praise. It was almost regret. She motioned him to follow. "You need to see what you left behind." Ethan hesitated, then followed her through the glowing corridors again. The symbols on the walls pulsed faintly as if reacting to his heartbeat. Each step echoed like footsteps in a dream. When they reached the main chamber, Liara touched one of the stone pillars and said, "Watch." A beam of blue light projected from the pillar. Forming shapes in the air, Ethan's breath caught. It was a holographic memory. He saw ancient humans in armor standing beside Varans, fighting a massive shadow spreading across the stars. Explosions tore through the void, planets burning, fleets collapsing. At the center of it all stood a man, him, holding the same Pulse of Dawn device. Liara's voice trembled as she said, "You built that weapon to save both our species, but it cost you your existence." The image flickered, showing the moment he activated the pulse. Light consumed everything, and then silence. Ethan stepped back, his pulse racing. That can't be real. This tech could have been made by anyone. Liara shook her head. "Look closer." He did, and saw something impossible. The man in the image wore a ring, half metal, half bone, etched with human and Varan runes. Ethan slowly lifted his hand. The same ring was on his finger. His breath caught. "No," he whispered. I don't even know where I got this." Liara's eyes softened. "You forged it when you made your promise." He turned away sharply, trying to laugh, but it came out broken. "This is madness." Liara walked closer, her presence calm but overwhelming. "Madness is believing time is a straight line," she said. "We live in circles, Commander, and every circle has its echo." Ethan felt the walls closing in, the memories pressing against his mind like waves. He heard faint whispers, voices calling his name in languages he didn't know. His ship's comlink crackled. "Commander, we're picking up unusual magnetic readings from the surface," Ramos's voice said. Ethan pressed his earpiece. "Copy that, I'll return soon." But Liara placed her hand on his arm, her skin warm, alive. "If you leave now, You'll forget again, he froze. Forget what? She looked at him like someone watching a sunrise fade. That you already saved us once. They stood in silence for a moment. The only sound was the low hum of the temple. Finally, Ethan asked, if what you're saying is true, why bring me back? Why now? Liara's expression darkened. Because the collapse has begun again. She walked toward the glowing circle. Pressing her palm to its center, a holographic map of the galaxy appeared. Half of it was flickering, fading like dying fire. The same cosmic wound is opening, she said quietly. The one you sealed thousands of years ago? Ethan stared at the projection, his rational mind fighting every instinct. It can't be real, he muttered. Liara whispered, whether you believe or not. The stars are already vanishing, he stepped closer, noticing strange energy trails across the hologram, the same symbols carved on the temple walls. Every pattern pulsed faster as he approached. Responding to his presence, Liara smiled faintly. It still knows you. He shook his head. I'm just a soldier, not a god. Not a god, she said. But something far rarer. A human who remembered enough to change time itself. Her words made his chest tighten, a strange ache deep in his soul. Ethan touched the projection, and for a second, he saw his reflection, older, wounded eyes full of stars. Then it vanished again. He turned to her, frustration in his voice. If I built that weapon, if I did all this, why can't I remember it? Liara answered softly. Because remembering would break you. You sealed your own past to protect your mind, and to keep the pulse from being found. Ethan lowered his head, trying to steady his breath. The temple lights dimmed as if reacting to his confusion. Liara continued, but now that you're here, the pulse will awaken and the past will find its way back. He looked at her sharply. And what if I don't want it to? She smiled sadly. Time doesn't ask for permission, Commander. It only collects what it's owed. Outside, thunder rumbled again, though the sky remained clear. The ground trembled slightly beneath them. Ethan turned to leave, needing air, needing distance. But as he reached the exit, a voice, his own voice, whispered faintly from the walls. You promised her forever. He spun around, eyes wide. But the chamber was empty except for Liara, standing in the same quiet patience. Do you hear it now? She asked gently. Ethan swallowed hard. What is happening to me? She looked at him with both sorrow and hope. The past is remembering you. The star memory night fell again over Vera Prime. 2 moons hung over the silent plains like watchful eyes. Ethan couldn't sleep. The air inside his quarters felt heavy, almost breathing with him each time he closed his eyes. Fragments of light moved behind his eyelids, broken images, voices calling his name across centuries. He rose from his bunk, pacing, staring at the glowing ring on his finger, the one Liara said he had forged himself. He turned it slowly, feeling faint warmth pulsing beneath the metal. Almost like a heartbeat. Computer, he whispered. Scan and identify this object, the AI voice replied flatly. Unknown composition, traces of pre-Terran alloys and chronotronic resonance detected. Ethan frowned. Chronotronic. Temporal energy signature consistent with time phase material, the AI said calmly. He shut the console off, his hands trembling. Outside, the alien city lights shimmered like constellations fallen to the ground. Something pulled at him, an invisible thread, guiding him back toward the temple. Against every order of logic he followed, moving through the silent pathways lit by soft blue veins of energy. When he reached the entrance, Liara was already there, standing as though she had waited all night. I knew you'd come, she said quietly. Ethan's voice was hoarse. I need answers. Liara nodded. Then step inside. The memory will show you what words cannot. The temple greeted them with its usual low hum. But tonight the symbols on the walls glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with Ethan's heart. Liara placed her hand on his chest over his heartbeat. It remembers your rhythm, she said softly. You are awakening. Ethan tried to pull back, but the floor beneath them rippled like liquid light. The room around him vanished, replaced by stars. He was no longer standing on stone, but floating in a void filled with glowing constellations. Liara's voice echoed from everywhere. You are inside the star memory. He turned slowly, eyes wide, far away. He saw himself, another version of him, wearing ancient Terran armor. Gold markings across the chest, he stood beside Liara. Though her form was brighter, almost divine, They faced a great shadow spreading through the stars, a dark wave devouring systems like smoke. Ethan felt the terror and courage of that long-gone man surge through him. The ancient Ethan lifted a device in the pulse of dawn, a sphere of pure energy surrounded by spinning rings. It pulsed once, and the shadow froze. He heard his own voice from that past self. If this fails, there will be nothing left to save. Liara's voice from the memory answered. Then we meet again in the next circle. And with that, the device exploded in white light. Ethan gasped, collapsing to his knees as the vision faded. He was back in the temple, sweat running down his face. What was that? He breathed. Liara knelt beside him. A memory burned into the fabric of the stars, and now it has found its way home. He stared at his hands, trembling. That thing, the pulse of dawn, it was real. She nodded. Yes, and it still exists, hidden where you placed it. Ethan's mind raced. You mean it's here? Liara looked toward the mountain beyond the temple, beneath the heart of Vera, waiting for you to remember how to reach it. He stood slowly, trying to steady his breath. Why me? Why not someone else? Because it only listens to the one who made it, she said simply. Ethan rubbed his temples, feeling the weight of something far beyond comprehension. Liara continued. The pulse was not a weapon. It was a promise, and to restore what was lost, to heal what was broken. He looked at her sharply. Then why did it destroy everything? Her eyes dimmed. Because you used it before you were ready. Because love made you choose faster than wisdom. Ethan's chest tightened. Love? Liara met his gaze. You built it to save me? For a long moment. He said nothing. Outside, thunder rolled again, though the air remained still. Ethan turned away, his voice low. If that's true, then what happens now? Liara walked closer, her silver eyes reflecting the light around them. Now, you must finish what you began or watch the galaxy fall again. He clenched his fists. You keep saying the galaxy is dying, but I haven't seen proof. Liara waved her hand, and the air between them turned into a map of stars, many blinking, some fading, some completely gone. These systems, she said quietly, ceased to exist 2 days ago. Consumed by the collapse, Ethan stepped closer, unable to look away. It's spreading. Yes, she said, and only the pulse can stop it. He exhaled shakily. Even if I could find it, I don't remember how to use it. Liara smiled faintly. That is why time brought you back, so memory could teach you again. She pressed her palm to his temple, and warmth spread through him like light. Suddenly, symbols and numbers flashed in his mind. Codes, equations, the hum of star engines. He stumbled, catching himself against a pillar. I know these. I shouldn't, but I do. Liara's voice softened. The pulse is not powered by energy, but by intention. It answers the will of its creator. Ethan looked at her, eyes filled with confusion and awe. You mean it runs on thought? On purpose, she said. And purpose is something you once had in abundance. The map of the galaxy flickered again, the fading stars forming a spiral leading toward a dark center. Ethan whispered. That's where it started, isn't it? Liara nodded. Yes, the place you named the Rift of Dying Suns, and where you made your final choice. He felt a chill run through him. Then that's where I'm going. Liara's face softened with both hope and fear. And if you go, there may be no return. Ethan's answer was calm but certain. Then I'll make sure this time I'm not late. The lights in the temple dimmed as if bowing to his decision. Liara looked at him, a single tear glimmering on her cheek. Time has waited long enough. Ethan turned toward the exit, the night sky ahead full of dying stars and unspoken destinies. He whispered under his breath. Then let's finish what I started. The awakening of the pulse. The morning sky over Vera Prime glowed blood orange, streaked with lightning that came from no storm. Ethan stood on the rocky ridge overlooking the temple, the wind tugging at his jacket behind him. His ship's crew waited nervously, their scanners showing rising energy readings deep beneath the surface. Whatever slept under the mountain was waking up. Commander, Captain Ramos said quietly. The readings are off the charts, like the planet itself is charging up. Ethan nodded slowly. That's exactly what I'm afraid of. He turned toward Liara, who stood at the edge of the ridge, eyes half closed, listening to something beyond hearing. It's calling, she said, her voice distant. It feels you again. Ethan looked at her sharply. You mean the pulse? Liara nodded. It has waited too long, and now the threads of time are fraying. It knows its creator is near. He frowned. Creator? That was another me, another life. Liara smiled faintly. Time doesn't care which version wears the name. It only knows you. They descended through narrow tunnels carved into the mountain. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum became. Vibrating in their bones, strange lights flickered through cracks in the stone. Soft white at first, then brightening to gold. At the end of the tunnel stood a massive sealed door, shaped like a circle split into 9 rotating rings. Symbols glowed across it, moving slowly as if alive. Ramos raised his weapon instinctively. Commander! This thing feels like it's watching us. Ethan ignored him. Stepping closer, his heart pounding, Liara whispered, It won't open for anyone else. Ethan placed his hand on the center of the door. Instantly, the symbols lit up, and the air filled with the sound of thousands of whispering voices. He pulled back, startled, but Liara's calm hand steadied him. Don't fear it, she said. It's your echo. The door began to rotate, each ring aligning into place with heavy, thunderous clicks. As the last ring settled, a blinding beam of blue light shot down the corridor. Ethan shielded his eyes, and when the glow faded, the door had vanished. Leaving an open path, a soft wind, cold and ancient, flowed out. Carrying the scent of iron and lightning, they stepped inside. The chamber was vast, a cathedral built not by hands, but by thought. Floating platforms hung in the air, connected by beams of light, and at the very center of the room hovered a sphere of pure energy, the pulse of dawn. It pulsed slowly like a sleeping heart, each beat echoing through the air. Ethan's breath caught. It's beautiful, he whispered. Liara smiled sadly. Beauty is only half its truth. As he walked closer, the pulse began to react, its rhythm matching his heartbeat. Light crawled up the walls, forming shapes of galaxies, spiraling, dying, reborn again and again. Each image flashed memories into his mind, wars, promises, the endless cycle of creation and loss. He staggered, clutching his head, visions exploding behind his eyes. He saw himself on a battlefield, wounded. Holding Liara's hand as the sky burned, he saw her cry as he activated the pulse the first time. He saw the explosion that wiped out everything. Then silence. Liara caught him as he fell to his knees. You're remembering too quickly, she whispered. Ethan gasped for breath. I destroyed it all. She nodded softly. To save what little remained. You made the impossible choice. He shook his head, voice trembling. I can't do it again. I can't. Liara cupped his face gently. You can and you must. Because time is collapsing again. Her eyes glimmered. Not with light, but with tears. And this time, if you fail, there will be no circle left to return to. The pulse brightened suddenly, casting long shadows across the chamber. Ramos called out, Commander, readings are spiking. It's pulling energy from everything around us. The ground trembled and cracks formed in the walls. Ethan forced himself to stand, staring at the sphere. Shut it down, Ramos shouted. Ethan shook his head slowly. You can't shut down time. He stepped closer, the light wrapping around him like a living storm. Every step felt heavier, like gravity itself was testing his will. Liara shouted over the roaring hum, Ethan, listen to me. The pulse responds to your thoughts, to your emotions, not commands, he shouted back. Then what does it want? She answered. It wants to finish what you started, to restore the timeline you broke. He clenched his fists, struggling to stay upright. And what happens if I let it? Liara's voice trembled. Then we vanish and the galaxy is rewritten, maybe better. Maybe worse. Ethan stared at her, the light reflecting in his eyes. So either way, we're gambling with existence. Liara nodded. That's what love made you do before. For a moment, the roaring hum softened, almost listening. Ethan felt warmth spreading through his chest, not pain, not fear, but something familiar. He whispered to the pulse. Show me what I lost. The sphere pulsed once, then unfolded like a blooming star. Images appeared all around, thousands of worlds. Humans and Varans working side by side, then fire again, destruction. And a single figure standing in the center of it all. Him holding the pulse, tears streaming down his face as he whispered, Forgive me. And then darkness, the vision ended, leaving only silence and soft light. Ethan stood trembling, eyes filled with the weight of countless lives. He turned to Liara, voice breaking. If I caused this once, why would time let me do it again? Liara stepped close, resting her hand on his chest. Because time doesn't punish Ethan, it gives second chances. He looked at her with disbelief. Even after I failed? Her lips curved in a faint, sorrowful smile. Especially then, outside. The mountain began to rumble again, the energy climbing faster. Ramos shouted from the entrance, "Commander, we can't hold this position much longer." Ethan turned to Liara, determination hardening his face. "Then we don't hold," he said. "We finish." He reached out toward the pulse, his reflection fractured in its glowing surface, and as his fingertips touched it, a voice in his own echoed from the light. "You're late again, Ethan." The sphere exploded in light. Swallowing everything in gold, the truth beneath the stars, the light faded slowly, leaving silence that felt older than sound itself. Ethan opened his eyes and found himself standing in a wide plain of shimmering dust. No mountain, no temple, no ship. Only endless sky and drifting golden sand that glowed like starlight under his boots. He looked around confused, calling out, "Liara?" But his voice vanished into the wind. A soft echo answered. "You already know where you are." He turned, and there she was, Liara, dressed not in her usual silver robes, but in dark armor traced with human symbols. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the reflection of 1,000 suns dying. "This is the space between memories," she said gently. "The place where your truth sleeps." Ethan took a slow step forward. "The pulse brought me here," Liara nodded. "It showed you what logic could not. Your heart's own past." The sky rippled and scenes began forming all around them. He saw ships burning in orbit, cities turning to ash, and soldiers shouting under collapsing skies. In the middle of the chaos, he saw himself again. The same face, the same eyes, but older, harder. He was commanding the last Terran fleet during the final war of the Great Collapse. Liara stood beside him even then, her world already half destroyed. Together they had built the Pulse of Dawn, hoping to reverse the wave of cosmic decay that was consuming galaxies. Ethan watched in awe as the memory version of himself spoke, his voice deep and weary. "If we use it now, we lose everything we are," Liara's past self answered. "If we wait, there will be nothing left to lose." He saw himself hesitate, glancing at her. Then take her hand, were a simple gesture that carried the weight of eternity. "I won't risk you," he had said. Liara smiled through tears. "You risked yourself the day you were born human." The pulse had stood before them like a captured star, rings spinning faster, the air burning with power. When Ethan's past self placed his hand on its surface, the glow wrapped around them both. Then came the truth. The decision he had forgotten. He had promised the pulse a part of himself, trading his memory, his identity, and his place in time to give life back to the stars. The cost had been total. His soul scattered through time so the universe could begin again. He had made sure no one, not even Liara, could find him. But she had waited anyway, watching centuries pass until his essence returned. The vision flickered and ended, leaving Ethan standing in silence, tears forming without permission. He looked at Liara, voice shaking. "I left you," she smiled sadly. "You saved me and you saved everything else. But time does not heal without scars." Ethan clenched his fists, guilt pressing on his chest. "And now it's happening again because I came back." Liara shook her head slowly. "No, it's happening again because time itself is unfinished. It keeps looping, trying to remember how to stay alive." He took a trembling breath. "So what do I do?" She stepped closer, her hand warm against his cheek. "Finish the circle, Ethan. Free time from the promise you made." He stared at her. "And what happens to us if I do that?" Her answer came softly. "We become what we were meant to be. Not memory, not myth, but peace." He swallowed hard, trying to believe it, yet fear clung to him. "How do I know it won't destroy everything again?" Liara's gaze didn't waver. "Because this time you remember love before sacrifice." The sand around them began to rise, forming shapes of stars, each one pulsing with the sound of a heartbeat. "The universe is alive again," Liara said, "but its heart beats unevenly, waiting for your choice." Ethan looked up at the endless sky. Seeing the scars of time stretching like cracks through glass, he whispered, "I was a soldier, not a savior." She smiled faintly. "That is why you were chosen. Because only someone who doubts his worth can carry such power without losing himself." The ground trembled as the golden plain began to fade. A beam of light surrounded them, pulling them upward through time itself. Ethan heard echoes of voices, human, alien, ancient, all calling his name with hope and fear. When the light cleared, they were back in the mountain chamber. The pulse floated before them, its glow now unstable, pulsing faster, fragments of energy cracking through the air. Liara whispered, "It's losing control. It knows the end is near." Ethan stepped forward, each breath heavy. He touched the ring on his finger and felt the warmth of every memory return. Laughter, pain, promise, love. He looked at Liara. "I remember now." She nodded, tears falling freely. "Then it's time to let it go." He reached toward the pulse, his reflection shining in its surface. Fractured yet whole for a heartbeat, everything stopped. The hum, the light, even time itself, and then the sphere spoke, its voice sounding like his own from ages past. "Will you finish the promise?" Ethan whispered, "Yes, but not the same way." He placed both hands on the pulse, closing his eyes instead of forcing it open. He shared his will, and calm, steady, full of light and mercy, the pulse responded, slowing, glowing softer, turning gold instead of blue around him. The air shimmered as galaxies began to appear again in the projection above. Liara's voice trembled. "You're healing it," he smiled faintly. "No, we're remembering it." The mountain shook once more. Not in destruction but release, energy surged outward, spreading through space like dawn breaking across eternity. Every star lit again, every system reformed. And for the first time since creation, the galaxy breathed in harmony. Ethan felt the power fade gently from his hands, his body weakening. He whispered, "It's done." Liara caught him as he fell, holding him close. "You kept your promise," she said through tears. He smiled faintly. "I was just on time. The choice of lifetimes." The chamber was silent again, but this silence was not emptiness. It was peace. The pulse of dawn hovered quietly, no longer burning, only glowing like a sleeping star. Liara knelt beside Ethan, holding his head in her lap. The storm outside the mountain had ended, and the wind carried a sound like soft music through the tunnels. He opened his eyes slowly. Weak but alive, her smile trembled. "You did it, Ethan." "The stars are breathing again." He tried to sit up, his voice barely a whisper. "For how long?" Liara looked away, her answer quiet. "For as long as you remain." He frowned faintly, trying to understand. "What do you mean?" he asked. Liara's eyes shimmered with sorrow. "The pulse is stable only because your essence is still inside it. It's tied to your existence now," he exhaled, realizing what she meant. "If I die, it dies too." She nodded slowly. "Yes. Unless you choose to release yourself completely, to let the pulse continue without you." Ethan looked up at the glowing sphere, his reflection floating inside it like a ghost of light. "So that's the final price," he murmured. Liara's voice broke softly. It always was, for a while. Neither spoke. The air hummed gently as if the universe itself was listening to his decision. Ethan reached for her hand, their fingers meeting in the golden light. "When we built this thing before," he said, "I thought sacrifice meant dying." She nodded. "It meant forgetting, losing everything that made you human. But now it means choosing to stay gone so that life can move forward." He smiled faintly. "That sounds like dying to me." Liara leaned closer, her forehead against his. "Then at least this time, you won't die alone." He laughed softly, the sound half pain, half wonder. "Do you ever get tired of waiting for me?" he asked. Her answer came without hesitation. "No, because every time you return, you're a little closer to peace." He closed his eyes, the warmth of her voice wrapping around him like home. Outside, the mountain trembled lightly, the light from the pulse spreading wider. Through the cracks in the stone ceiling, faint glimmers of stars shone, brighter, cleaner, reborn. It was the first dawn of a new universe, and he had made it. Liara rose slowly. Helping him stand, the pulse shifted shape, transforming into a slow-turning sphere of gold and white. Ethan looked at it one last time. "It feels different now," Liara nodded, "because now it remembers kindness instead of fear." He took a slow breath. "If I leave, what happens to you?" She smiled faintly. "Time will give me a place in the new circle, maybe human, maybe light, maybe nothing. But I will exist." He touched her cheek, his hand shaking. "And if I stay?" "Then the pulse fades again," she whispered, "and the universe forgets how to breathe. His eyes closed for a long moment. When he opened them again, there was no fear, only calm. "Then I guess this is goodbye," he said softly. Liara stepped closer, resting her hand over his heart. "No, Ethan, not goodbye, only again." Tears glimmered in her silver eyes. Falling silently, he smiled faintly. "You always did make time sound romantic." She laughed quietly through the tears. "You always did make it late." He looked back at the pulse. The golden sphere pulsed slower now. As if waiting, patient and gentle, he reached out, his hand glowing faintly where light met flesh. A voice echoed inside his mind. His own voice from the past. This time, "You don't erase love to save the world," he whispered back. "No, this time, love saves it." The light spread from his hand into his chest, rising upward like fire turning to mist. Liara watched as his body began to fade, golden light pouring from his heart like rivers of memory. "Ethan," she whispered. "Thank you." He looked at her one last time, smiling softly. "Find me early next time," he said, his voice fading with the light. Liara's tears fell like silver rain. "I will," she whispered. "I always will." And then he was gone. The pulse brightened once more, filling the entire chamber with radiant gold. Outside, every star in the sky flared alive, brighter than ever. The mountains glowed, the rivers shimmered, and silence turned into a song of rebirth. Liara fell to her knees, hands clasped, not in grief but in awe. She looked up, her whisper carried into the universe. He kept his promise. The pulse slowly descended. Embedding itself into the heart of the mountain, it would remain there. Quiet, eternal, the heartbeat of a new age, and across galaxies, species looked to the stars and felt something they couldn't name. Warmth, clarity, the faint sense that someone had loved enough to begin again. Liara stood alone in the light until dawn. The wind brushed her face gently, and in it, she thought she heard a familiar voice. "You're early this time," she smiled, closing her eyes. "Yes," she whispered, "finally." The light beyond time. When the light faded, the universe was no longer the same. The mountains of Vera Prime had turned into crystal peaks, glowing softly under two newborn suns. The air shimmered like a dream breathing for the first time. At the mountain's heart, the pulse of dawn rested quietly, its rhythm now slow and gentle, like the heartbeat of creation itself. Liara stood at the ridge, wind whispering through her hair. The sky was painted with golden trails of light, the remnants of Ethan's sacrifice spreading across space. Every star twinkled brighter than before, as though the cosmos had opened its eyes after a long sleep. She closed hers, feeling the hum of his presence still within the air. For a moment she heard nothing but the wind. Then faintly, Ethan's voice echoed in the distance, not as sound but as warmth. "You're early this time." Liara smiled through her tears, whispering back, "And you're never gone." Time flowed differently now. The wars that once scarred the galaxy had been rewritten into peace. Worlds that once burned now flourished with green life. Even the stars that had died before were shining again, as if they had forgiven existence for ending once too soon. But Liara knew that peace had come at a price, one that no one would remember but her. She walked through the city rebuilt below. Humans and Varans worked together again, unaware of the loops that had once trapped their souls. Children laughed, machines sang, and skyships carried messages of trade instead of war. It was a new age born from a promise kept. Whenever she passed the temple, she felt the faint pull of light beneath the stone. That was where he slept, not in body but in energy, folded into the pulse of the universe. Years drifted by like days. Liara never aged. She simply changed. Her hair silvered, her eyes softer, her voice slower. Every evening she climbed the mountain and spoke to the air. Sometimes she read old mission logs Ethan had left. Sometimes she only watched the sunset and said nothing at all. But one evening, when the twin suns dipped below the horizon, she felt something shift inside the light. The pulse began to glow again, faint but steady. The temple doors opened on their own, and the wind carried a voice. Not memory, not echo, but real. "Is anyone there?" it said. Liara's heart froze. She walked inside, her steps light, her eyes wide with disbelief. In the center of the chamber stood a man. Young, human, confused, his uniform unfamiliar. He looked around, eyes catching the gold shimmer in the air. Liara whispered, "Ethan?" He turned, startled. "I'm sorry, Mike, do I know you?" She smiled, tears filling her eyes but her heart calm. "No, she said softly. Not yet. He frowned slightly. How did I get here? My ship, it crashed somewhere near the ridge. The beacon went dead. Liara stepped closer, her voice trembling with the weight of countless lifetimes. You're safe now, she said. You found your way home. He blinked, uncertain, but something in her voice made him trust her. He nodded slowly. Home, he repeated, the word feeling strangely familiar on his tongue. They stood together in silence as the chamber filled with soft golden light. The pulse glowed brighter for a moment, then settled again. Ethan's new eyes caught the reflection of a memory he didn't yet have. He turned to her and asked quietly, Have we met before? Liara smiled through her tears. Only across every lifetime. Outside, the stars began to shimmer, rearranging themselves into new constellations. They formed a pattern that stretched across the galaxy. 2 spirals joined at the center. Glowing like twin hearts, all who looked at the night sky that day felt something different. A sense of warmth, of hope, of a promise they didn't remember making across 1,000 worlds. Children pointed upward and whispered that the stars were alive again. Liara and Ethan walked out of the temple together, their silhouettes framed by the twin suns. Neither spoke for a long while, the silence between them soft and full. At last she said quietly, You were late. He laughed. The sound free and young. Then I'll spend this life trying to be early. She smiled. I'll hold you to that. They watched the sky until night fell. In the distance, the pulse of dawn pulsed once, now slow, calm, eternal, and somewhere beyond time. The universe smiled. The circle was complete, the promise kept. And love, human and infinite, had become the heartbeat of creation itself.